I think of you as a sponsor. You're many things. You're a house with many rooms, but because you sponsor somebody that's near and dear to me that I look over the breakfast table at, I think of you as, it's time to call Judy. Don't think I'm telling tales out of school to say you got 43 years in this deal.
Yeah.
And you're a 7th degree black belt sponsor. So I'm just going to throw you in the deep end. Got anything you want to say about being a sponsor or having a sponsor that pops to the top of your mind?
Honestly, I had great sponsorship, and I truly believe that's why I'm still sober today. I sobered up in 1980, and it was kind of pretty old school AA back then. I had a gal that when I first came into AA, they got the youngest person in the group to come into town to talk to me and 12-step me, and I was 22, she was 35. And that lasted a few months, but they got together in a meeting, the old timers, and decided that I would be better off with another sponsor that could handle me, is what they said. So they sent me over to the suburban group, and they hooked me up with this lady named Torchy. And she looked exactly like the name Torchy sounds. She had flaming red hair. She was about 6'2". She looked like what you would picture in a 1940s film about a brothel, and she was the madam. She had the big makeup and the 40s hair and chain smoked cigarettes and cussed like I did, but she loved Alcoholics Anonymous, and she knew the big book, and she took me under her wing and walked me through the steps, and that's the way I was sponsored. And the way that I like to sponsor is it's a life or death program. So you either do the stuff or you move on down the road so we can make room for somebody who will.
This is in Dallas?
Yeah, Dallas, at the suburban group.
Okay. That's my hometown. I actually got sober in Los Angeles, but I've spent a lot of time pre-sobriety and post getting sober in Big D. And you and I have a lot of Venn diagram. I don't know if we ever actually crossed paths back then, but even
probably
if we
so.
did, So sounds like you were memorable. What were you like? You were raising hell at age 20, 21, 22 before you got sober. Those were my worst years for drinking that age. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
And Texas was the wild, wild west at that time. We're about the same age. There's no shame in that. And you don't get to be 43 years sober and still be a teenager. But it was, I think it's hard to describe what drinking was like in bars, at least 40 years ago, 50 years ago in Texas, because the happy hours were just buckets of practically free liquor, and you were expected to drive home afterwards because how the hell else are you going to get home? And if you got pulled over, you'd probably get let go if you looked like us.
Yeah.
And let's be honest. And that's just, thank God, not the way of the world anymore. I don't laugh at that stuff, all the drunk driving and blackout driving. I think it's terrible and shameful. Can't change the past, but I don't take any pleasure in that. But it did make for a fast, hard hitting bottom, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
What was there a time where you said enough's enough, or were you like me and you got dragged and thrown into a place?
My drinking was weird from the start, and it always used to make me mad because I'd sit in meetings and I'd listen to people say, well, I drank all through college and everything was fine. Or, I drank fine until I was 42. I never drank fine. And I always felt like I kind of got cheated out of that. I mean, the first time I drank was a bottle of Everclear mixed with cherry punch at the Gemini Drive-In in Dallas with a couple kids from the Catholic school. And I blacked out. And it was pretty much like that throughout my whole drinking. So I always knew my drinking was not the way it should have been. And of course, I'm like everybody else. I'd have some nights where I drank good. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't make a fool out of myself. And somehow everything worked out. And so I'd have those and think, oh, well, I can have those nights. So that's what kept me drinking for as long as it did. And I started going to jail because of my drinking when I was old enough to go to jail. I mean, really, days after my 16th birthday, I went to jail for my first DWI. And
Mm.
so I always knew that if I couldn't figure out how to change my drinking, then I needed to quit drinking. And you just go until you can't go anymore. I'm like everybody else. I just went till I couldn't go anymore. And of course, the story. I was working a flight with one of the airlines. I was a flight attendant, and I was a blackout drunk at 8 in the morning, and decided to serve everybody on the flight vodka in their orange juice in hopes that they wouldn't realize that I was drunk.
Wait a minute. They didn't order a
No, no,
screwdriver? You
no.
just made them?
I was coming back from a Vegas flight overnight where it was like we got in at midnight and flew out at 12 or something, or 8:30 the next morning. It was a really short layover. And I started drinking and doing, it doesn't take a pretty blonde, long to find cocaine in Vegas. And so I was doing drugs and drinking the minute we got in the hotel. And I was in a blackout getting back on the flight to work the flight home. And I came out of the blackout for a short period of time in the galley and realized I was that I was flipped out drunk. And I thought, well, if everybody else is drinking on the flight, it'll be one big family party. They won't be mad that I'm the only one drunk. So we serve a complimentary orange juice, tomato juice. And I just got in the liquor cabinet and poured vodka in everyone on the flight's drink and served it that way. And just to cut to the end of the story, the FAA was waiting for me to take me away when we landed.
Judy.
And, you go through something like that and you realize, I've been on probation my whole pretty much adult life up to that point. And you go through something like that, and flying was my dream job. I never graduated from high school. I didn't have a lot of potential when it came to corporate life. So flying was my dream job, and I blew it. And I blew it in a matter of barely 6 months. So that's kind of was my introduction to AA. I knew some people that were in the program, and I kind of had a choice. Will I go to the convent, kill myself, or go to AA? So I decided to put it in order and try those steps in order. And I went to AA, and thank God it worked. And I'm not.
Wait, run that back again. What was on the menu you were thinking of?
I was going to either go into AA, join the convent and become a nun, or kill myself. So I used that chronological order of doing things, and thank God AA worked. So,
right.
So you're not calling me Sister Mary Judy or something.
That's hard to picture.
Yeah, it was for me too. That'll keep you sober.
Okay, I'm just going to say, wow. Were you one and done, Judy? Did you go in for your first meeting or two?
No. I was the youngest person at the group, and I still could not believe at 22 years old I had to quit drinking. I could not wrap my head around it. So I went in and I stayed sober for, I think, 4 months. And no, actually, I stayed sober for about 4 weeks, and then went out and got another DWI. And then came back in.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. And then went back out, came back in. When I finally got Torchy as a sponsor, May 8th, I would do things like, well, these old people, they play gin and go to Denny's to eat on Friday nights. I'm not going to live that way. I still need to go to the clubs and get my dance on. So that's what I would do. But, we can't go to the club and get our dance on with the same people we were doing shots of tequila and cocaine with, and expect not to do shots of tequila and cocaine. There's a reason the big book talks about we need to change playgrounds and playmates, especially at first. But I thought I was different because I was different at the time in my group. There were no young people. So I thought, well, I'll kind of change the steps or change the program to fit me, because I was a self-centered know-it-all alcoholic. And I had to do what I had to do to find out that it didn't work. But I remember the last day I woke up drunk and I sat up in bed and went, it's the broccoli thing. It's the broccoli thing they've been telling me. If I ate broccoli and went to jail, or ate broccoli and blacked out, I wouldn't eat broccoli. I have an allergy. It took me that long to really understand and grasp that it wasn't going to change. I had an allergy, and that's, tough shit. That's the way it was. Nothing was going to change that. And it's like I finally, I say there's levels of the first step. There was for me. There was acknowledging the first step, which I did when I came in that first time in October after I got fired from the airline. So I acknowledged I was an alcoholic. Then there was accepting I was an alcoholic, and I kind of did that along the way. But the last time I had a drink and woke up that next morning, I approved. In other words, I acknowledge, I accept, I approve in a way that I'm not going to try to change it anymore. So it is what it is. And that's when I began to work the steps with honesty.
Mm. Well, not to beat a dead horse, but I had not heard the word broccoli, but I can tell you from my life, I've got a son who's 26 now, living in Los Angeles, and he was about 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
We were at home one night, 10 p.m., watching TV, and he ate his first cashew. And by midnight, he was in the emergency room, red as a fire engine, throat closing up on him, IV drip. And from that day to this, 20 years, he's had an EpiPen in his jeans pocket, an EpiPen near the TV in his casa, and he reads labels scrupulously.
Right.
And he never fucks around with nuts. He never goes, well, maybe I could grind him up and put him on ice cream. Maybe I could eat him just at weddings. It doesn't cross his mind. He's got an allergy, and he doesn't have an obsession, and they're bad for him, and he doesn't want to feel bad anymore. So that was that.
That's it.
No mas. Yeah, and that was not me. If the first time I had a negative consequence from drinking had been the end of the story, my life would have looked really different.
Exactly.
I had to get beat to shit for years and years and years and years. And my the truth is that I rearranged chairs on the Titanic.
Exactly. Right analogy.
I'm a real drunk. Mom was a drunk. Grandpa was a drunk. I'm a drunk. And I put the plug in the jug, but didn't quit doing other substances. And that's what landed me in the hospital a few years later and got me into sobriety. Right. So I know that, to use somebody else's line, as far as I know, I've never seen heroin, but I know I'm addicted to it.
Yeah.
I get this pilot light down inside me that's just waiting to get ginned back up. And it seems that pretty much anything that changes my head will do the trick. You do get to a point where I don't like anything that makes me feel even lightheaded. I don't like feeling out of breath. I don't like being overtired. I really like being frosty and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Right.
And I don't know precisely when that change happened, but, it had to do with being thrown in a hospital and feeling done. I don't know about you, but I really felt done. And you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to. I get it. I get it. And people with decades of sobriety have gone out and gotten drunk. I know that. Right. I've seen it. So far, the urge has never crossed my mind, thank God, because I know people struggle that way. I'm not trying to belittle that. But I was immediately so happy to be relieved of the Jones and the chain around me that it's never be like, for me, it'd be like reminiscing about going back to jail, how great it would be. It's just fucking nuts. Right. And not that every single day of the last 30 years has been a day at the beach. It has not, but love being sober. Love it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to take that out. There aren't many rules here, but there's a fellowship that we're not to express that we're members of without violating one of the traditions. Right. So I respect it. I don't know how I'm going to fix that. Maybe I'll bleep it with, where's my thing? I got a thing here. Anyway, so was there a moment in early sobriety where you went, hey, it turns out I really am done. I don't even want to get high. What has happened to me? Did you have that thought?
It was a gradual thing. And It was such a habit for me. I was never an everyday drunk. I was too
Okay.
destructive. I was a fighter. I was a driver. I was a jailbird. I was a violent drunk. And I couldn't
Mm.
do it every day and throw drugs on top of that. And, you've got a really charming person, but I couldn't do that every day. So I kind of had rituals, and usually it was at the end of the week when the week work was done or whatever, and I'd start at 5 o'clock, and then or whenever
Okay.
it was, and then I'd go until I couldn't go anymore days. um, so that desire to reward myself with a beer or going out, or the whole ritual of getting dressed and drinking and going out, that was hard to that was the physical thing and the mental thing for me. So I had to replace that with going to meetings and making sure I had something to do on Friday nights or Saturday nights other than sit home, because it was just the ritual. But I do remember months in, after I took after I did my fifth step, I remember around that time thinking, I haven't had the desire to check out, meaning pick up a drink or drug. And I don't remember when. It wasn't like, yeah, I remember it was last Friday when I had the last urge, but it slowly got less and less until I didn't even think about it anymore. And I couldn't remember when the last time I had it. And I tell you, really, Sherman, especially in the early years and even now, that kept me sober. That to me is one of the biggest miracles of the program. The fact that the desire to check out, or the desire to relieve whatever it is that we think that alcohol relieves for us, has gone away, where that's no longer a solution. That was a big deal for me,
Sure.
because it was a solution to numb a lot of pain, to numb a lot of memories. And I haven't had it in years.
I was at a funeral of a friend. I had 6 months sober, and I got invited to jump into a town car to go from the hotel to the graveside
Mhm.
by a buddy of mine who was also in town for just the service. So it was just the two of us, 1,000 miles away from home, and my mate stuffed a pot pipe and lit it up and passed it to me, and I said no thanks. But inside my head, he could not have known what was going on my side of the fence. But inside my head, I went, I actually don't want it.
Yeah,
This is not a person on a diet resisting an urge for ice cream.
right.
It was like you offering me, cottage cheese with tofu crumbled. I was like, oh no, no thanks. And
That sounds kind of good.
yeah, well, okay, yeah, that's why they make mustard and mayonnaise. But the idea that, because boy was I a pot guy for decades, and,
Yeah,
and it was wake and bake guy, and to be a million miles from home at a friend's funeral in a Lincoln and turn it down because I didn't want it.
yeah,
I just my head spun around like The Exorcist. I'm like, this
yeah.
stuff actually. Did you say it really works? This stuff really
It
works.
does.
This recovery thing, or I don't know, man. I knew an old timer there in Dallas, 50 years sober, and he said that
Cersei?
I no, it was Lewis a
He
preacher,
was my
but he was
sponsor for a short time, between the first sponsor, and Torchy. Lewis is the one that introduced me to Torchy.
you talking about Lewis C?
Yeah,
No
a
kidding.
preacher.
Loved him.
God, he
Loved
was.
him. And like you, when I looked at his sobriety date, I said, you got sober in 52. You were 26. I'm not kidding. So you were 26, and I said, that's kind of rare back then, wasn't it, Lewis? And he goes, oh, they used to come from miles around just to look at you.
Yeah. He cussed so much. I couldn't believe he was
Oh,
a
dude.
preacher. But he was funny, and he took me to. He's the one that said, Torchy's the one you need, and I'm going to talk to her and take her.
This is blowing my mind, Judy. I can't believe we're
It
having
was
this
Chamberlain,
conversation.
wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Oops. Can't say. Well, yeah, we can break his anonymity.
Yeah.
He's been gone for years. If he hadn't, he's 112.
He's gone. And boy, how'd he cuss? Nothing. I don't mean just like if he hit his thumb with a hammer. I mean, he would say some stuff about some people in the meeting that curled my hair. And I'm me.
I know it. I know it. He was a good one.
Apropos of absolutely nothing, it was like, it might have been my 10th day birthday. So it was 20 years ago. We were in my apartment with 40 people, having cake and ice cream, yapping. And I was having a bad day. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but alcoholics don't always have the feelings they're supposed to have at the time they're supposed to have them. We're not always happy at weddings and sad at funerals. Right. Whatever. My experience. So I'm at this, lovely gathering that's kind of in my honor, and I really got the blues over money and work. I'm really depressed over that stuff. Not saying anything about it, but I'm bummed. And Lewis walks over to me from 20 feet away, just jumps right in my face, and he goes, "Isn't making a living just the worst thing in life? Wouldn't life just be beautiful? We didn't have to chase that damn dollar. That's just the hardest thing in the hell." I hadn't talked to him all day. I hadn't opened the mouth, and at my quote unquote birthday party, he runs over and just like Kreskin sticks his head inside my skull.
Oh yeah.
It's but then, Judy, I thought y'all were all mind readers when I got sober, because we all have, I call us zebras. We look like horses. We can hang out with horses. We can kind of get along with horses.
No.
We're not normal. I'm going to break it to you. Alcoholics are not normal. We're not like the other little boys and girls. And there's something about, and this is where, Bill and Bob struck gold, is there's something about us getting together, just getting in the same room and telling the truth, that it's like water in the desert for me.
Yeah.
To have it. Lewis and Cersei. You knew Cersei, huh?
Oh, Cersei was Torchy's closest friend. And Cersei was one of the 4 men they called in to 12-step me. So I was actually 12-step by him and 3 other old timers from suburban that my dad worked for W.O. Bankston, who was longtime sober. So he called.
That's a Lincoln house here in Dallas.
Do what?
Bankston was a Lincoln deal.
Yeah. And he called all those old timers, and they took me to Aquarius because there was a young person that was 35 at Aquarius. But I didn't make it too long at Aquarius and couldn't stay sober, so they sent me back to suburban to get sober with the old timers.
So being 35 and being in recovery was rare to be that young at that time?
In the groups that I was going to, yes. Now, Alpha is where all the young people went, but they wouldn't let me go. I was sponsored by the group in a lot of ways because I was so young. They felt like if I started going to the young people's group, I'd be out doing the same, that I wouldn't be able to focus on getting sober. It was like it takes a village type thing to sponsor me at first.
Different cities and different meetings have different sort of customs and cultures. But I remember this in Dallas, that if I went to a group that sort of skewed young. There were a lot of girls in their 30s and stuff coming there to get sober. And if an AA Romeo started sidling over towards one of these vulnerable newcomers after a meeting, these old Texas gals with backbone would circle her like a calf and really just say, "Yeah, what do you want?"
Yeah.
And pretty much that's enough to wither, most of those skunks and make them tiptoe away. I was just going to welcome. Yeah, go welcome Sherman. He needs some help too. Get away from her. Your help is not needed here.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm romanticizing it, but that's really the picture I have in my mind of the way in that large group that young women getting sober. And I know this is cisgender normative, but I grew up the way I grew up in the town I grew up in, and at that time it seemed appropriate to me that young ladies trying to get sober got protected by
absolutely
the tough Texas gals. You with me on that? All right.
I wouldn't have stayed sober if they hadn't. I mean, there's so many things. That's why I look back at the sponsorship I had, and I was boy crazy. And if that was a term I'd been called all my life. She just goes out and wants to chase boys or whatever. But I had fun, and I wouldn't have done well at all in a young people's group. And the women, I mean, pretty much everybody was kind of afraid of Torchy. So if Torchy told some young guy to stay away from me, he stayed away from me. And the women at Aquarius,
I'm scared of her and I never met her.
yeah, did the same thing. And to be honest with you, I did the same thing to my girls that I sponsored. Nobody would date one of Mama J's girls. They just knew better.
It's like messing with the Sopranos. Don't do it,
Oh, yeah.
buddy. A lot of fish to see. Leave those alone. Well, great. So you're back at you're in the Austin area now,
Yeah.
and probably a pillar of some group or groups out there, I'm guessing.
Not really, honestly. We've been here for a while, and I went to the local group in my small town for a while, and I haven't found a home group like I have in Dallas. I go to meetings. I'll drive in Austin. I'll try different meetings, and then during COVID, we started one online, which you know about. And now I'm going to a women's meeting online of women in Austin that I just started going to recently. So I it's an hour in there, an hour and 10 minutes to go in. So it's a definite commitment and to go into an in-person meeting. And honestly, I've kind of gotten spoiled with Zoom meetings where
Love Zoom.
I can get the same fellowship and don't have to leave my house. But
you're telling Noah about the flood. I love me some Zoom.
Yeah.
It's become 90% of my meetings for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I know some people that that's not me. And well, I want to thank you not just for sitting down and telling these stories and telling your truth, but for walking the talk. I've known you. Okay, I'll tell you the truth. I was scared of you, Judy.
I'm sorry.
No reason for it. No reason for it. I'm not unusually bashful. I usually, get along with folks, but I don't know. I had to make I had to come to you to pay for a recording from an artist that you work closely with.
Yeah.
And him I've known since rocks were soft, but you I didn't know. I was like, man, I gotta call Judy and see how much money she's gonna charge me for this song. Trying to beat me with a stick and run me off. I'm in trouble. And I just love you. You're so in my heart, and you're in my family. And it's what's better than the friends we make in recovery? There's nothing better than that. And from the bottom, I want to thank you. Anything we've left unsaid that I didn't think to ask you?
Just keep coming back. It works if you work it. It all comes down to that.
Shit can work. That's what my first sponsor.
You just
love you, Judy. I'm out. We're gonna roll the music.
Okay. Love you, Sherm. Thank you, buddy.